Thanks for checking out this horror movie superlatives video. These are the horror movie superlatives for 2003, so if you're not familiar, watch my video, get my picks for that year, and then go to your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete's channel, which is linked in the description. Watch his video of the same name, get his picks, and then if you would like to, you can get interactive with this. You can come back to my channel, go to the community tab, and vote on who you think had the best picks. There's also a tie option if you're into that. Also, go ahead and comment on our videos and let us know what your picks would be for these categories for the 2003 films. I haven't said it in past videos, but just as a reminder, we're using Letterboxd to tell us the year for all these movies, because I know there are some discrepancies between like Letterboxd and IMDb and other places as to what year the films came out. And sometimes it's multiples because it's like, it's a Japanese film. It came out in, 2003 in Japan, but then 2005 in the United States, stuff like that. So we're just going off Letterboxd to have one source. So just wanted people to know that. And while I'm already talking about this stuff, thumbs up on this video and Uncle Pete's video. That helps us out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to both our channels if you haven't already, if you want to, show your appreciation for what we're doing. And you can also hit the notification bell button to know when we're putting up new videos. So anyway, let me get into it. My picks for 2003 for the horror movie superlatives. So for the most amazing category, I was gonna go with Old Boy, but my buddy Rich was like, is Old Boy actually a horror film? I don't think so. And I was like, okay, fair enough point. It is horror-ish. There are some horror elements to it. So just know I thought about doing Old Boy. It's one of my favorite films of all time. But I think Rich is correct that it's not really horror. So instead, I've chosen for my most amazing for 2003, A Tale of Two Sisters. As you can tell, I bought this used at one point, and it was $7.99. I think it was from like Record and Tape Traders, which is, it actually says here, Record and Tape Traders. That was a great place in Maryland. Anyway, A Tale of Two Sisters, a Korean film about a family that end up moving into this house, and there's ghost activity within the house. It primarily focuses on this girl who, her mother had passed away, and then she's living with her father and her stepmother, and her stepmother's kind of abusive, and then she has her sister with her, and there's this whole thing with the abuse that's going on with her sister, and then there's ghosts involved, and yeah, but there is a big kind of turn in the film that is a bit confusing at times for people, and that is what is the strongest thing about this film. Well, I mean, like, it looks really good, the acting's really good, the story is great. This is actually like a different take on an old fairy tale, apparently, and it is dark, it is twisted, and it is extremely well executed, and it gets your mind, your head spinning at times in a very good way. This is an amazing experience. As far as the film goes, I've actually owned this for many, many, many years because, it's DVD, and I just watched it, collector problems. So glad I finally did. It is outstanding. So yeah, my pick for most amazing 2003, A Tale of Two Sisters. Also, there's some really scary, like legitimately creepy, scary moments in this film. Just saying. So moving on to the next category, the best so bad it's good, and this is another one that I own on DVD, the special edition, Battlefield Baseball. Okay, absurd. This is a Japanese film that is just over the top, balls to the wall, ridiculous. It literally is about a high school baseball team who doesn't just play other teams from other schools. They play teams from other schools who are actually trying to kill them, including a team that consists entirely of zombies. It's one of those types of things where it's kind of got a video game aspect to it, where it's like, next it's this level, it's this team that is trying to kill you, and this is the type of players they have. So it's really fun. I mean, obviously it's a terrible movie because it's just so ridiculous and over the top. But it's super fun. It's super, like I said, keep saying ridiculous. I cannot stress how ridiculous this movie is. It's got a lot of really awesome action, some really ridiculous practical effects. It's just a really fun time. And they end up getting, the team they're focusing on from the high school ends up getting this kind of like loner who's this amazing pitcher, they find out, who's like, you're the only one who can save this team from complete annihilation. So it's literally taking like baseball competition or any sports competition really, and just blowing it out of proportion to be like, what if the stakes weren't just winning or losing, but winning or losing your life? So yeah, it's just really ridiculous and fun, and I highly recommend it. So my pick for the best so bad it's good for 2003, Battlefield Baseball. Plenty of horror in that one. So my next film I don't physically own. It's the most WTF film, and I've picked things already from this decade, from this particular director from Japan, Takashi Miike. It is the film Gozu. This film is wild. Actually, I don't know why I don't own it, actually. I know a friend owned it at one point, and I watched it with them, but it is basically about a guy who is a hitman for Yakuza, and he's assigned to assassinate a friend of his, basically. So he takes him on this trip, and then while he's on this trip, before he can assassinate him, he basically disappears. And then it's about him kind of trying to find him to complete this mission. And then he just comes upon all these weird characters, and there's a lot of wild stuff that goes on. It's like a fever dream. It becomes very surreal. It becomes very nightmarish. A lot of people have tried to figure out what they really think is going on with this film, kind of like the undertones, the subtext of the movie, the themes. And there are plenty of other people who are just like, this is just Takashi Miike doing wild stuff that's not really supposed to make any sense. It's just supposed to be entertaining and wild and over the top and disgusting and creepy. And there is a birth scene in this movie in particular that people talk about that is something. So this movie goes places, so much WTF going on in it. And if you know Takashi Miike, it makes sense. So anyway, my pick for the most WTF for 2003, Gozu. Check that one out. So the next one I do have a visual aid for. The best gore, hands down, best gore for this decade has to be High Tension by Alexander Aja. This film is disgusting when it comes to the gore aspects. It goes over the top. It goes brutal, 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 brutal. It's about a woman, two women who are college friends who are trying to get away for some quiet time to study for exams. They go to the one girl's family's house, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, while they're there, someone breaks into the house and ends up murdering people in, like I said, brutal fashion. It is unflinching how disgusting it is. My favorite scene, which sounds weird to say this, but my favorite scene that's like copious amounts of blood and very brutal has to do with a dresser drawer, or a whole dresser, and someone's head. So just going to leave it at that. It is wild. It is a lot, and it is clearly, in my opinion, the best pick for the best gore. The film also is known for having a pretty wild ending to it. Some people really loved it. Some people really hated it. I think it personally really worked. I think this is a film that's worth watching. It's just not just for the gore. I think it's a fun ride. So yeah, it becomes this kind of final girl thing with a twist to it. But yeah, High Tension pick for 2003 for best gore for sure. That leads me to the next one that I don't have a visual aid for. I did own this movie at once. I bought it used, I believe, from Blockbuster, watched it one time, and then was like, I hate this, I'm getting rid of it. And I still don't like the movie, but it is super unique. So for the most unique category, it's got to be the film Open Water. So it's a boring film, in my opinion. It's kind of found footage-y without being found footage. And the reason it was so unique, and I fully believe it's super unique for this year, for 2003, is it literally just stays focused on a man and a woman who are stranded in the middle of the ocean because they got left behind by their scuba diving group, basically. I think it was based on a true story, and it's just basically about them trying to stay afloat, trying to survive, and there's, sharks in the water and all sorts of issues that come up and what ends up happening to them. But it's very unflinching, and for the reason that it just keeps staying with them, it's just slow and boring, so I don't like the film, but the concept is super unique for the time. There really wasn't much of there weren't many films doing things like that, and I feel like this was the first film like that got kind of big. It did get a lot of attention, and people really loved it. Not me, obviously, but I do think it needs to be recognized, so that's why I chose Open Water as my pick for the most unique for 2003. Now, Final cat. Oh, sorry. Got to go to. I was gonna jump to underrated. I gotta go do overrated first because I'm excited about the underrated. So for my pick for the most overrated is a film that a lot of people in the horror community are all about. It is Rob Zombie's The House of a Thousand Corpses. I think it's okay. So first of all, what's it about? For I mean, most people watching this probably already know. It's basically about a bunch of people who run afoul of the Firefly family who are just murderers. I mean, it's a very basic plot. It's a pretty much a ripoff of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's the thing. This movie to me, I think is overrated because it's not a very original film, even for when it came out. It's a series of ripoffs in one movie. The dialogue's not very good. It is very slow and kind of uninteresting for me personally until the final 15 minutes. The final like 15 minutes of when they're going, there's like this underground portion with Dr. Satan. Like that stuff is interesting, and I wish the whole movie was exploring that type of stuff. But the movie's just not that good, I don't think, but people love it. People go wild for it. The movie I think is obviously the best of Rob Zombie's has got to be The Devil's Rejects. Lords of Salem is a very underrated one by Rob Zombie that I think more people should check out because that's actually pretty good. But The House of a Thousand Corpses I just think is vastly overrated. It's just not as good as people would say. But, you know, to each their own opinion anyway. So most overrated, House of a Thousand Corpses. Now, getting to the most underrated. Now, I feel like I'm kind of cheating on this because it's two movies. The reason it's two movies is because they're short films. But the reason I have to have them together, I can't choose this one of them, is because they were brought about by one project. So it's the movies Origami and 2LDK. The writer-directors of these films, which actually... Ryuhei Kitamura did Origami. He also did Versus. I think he did Midnight Meat Train. And then Yukihiko Tsutsumi did 2LDK. Now, they're two friends. The story goes, they were friends. They were having some drinks, for both filmmakers. And they decided, hey, let's do a short film project together. And we'll set certain parameters. And it'll be like a competition. So the concept was it has to all be shot in one location. It has to just feature two primary characters, and they have to have a duel at some point. And that's it. Then they went off, they wrote their scripts, and they made their films. So these two films are vastly underrated. A lot of people have not seen them. They're really great. So let me talk about Origami first. Origami is the one that's least horror-ish, although it has a demon involved in it. It's basically about a samurai warrior who is wounded, who finds himself his way to this temple at the top of a mountain, and he runs into the guy who's living there, and the guy reveals that he is a demon. He is this demon who has to stay there and live there, and he wants to fight him to the death. So that's what it's about. So the demon aspect is horror, but it's very interesting where it ends up going. The fight scenes are really good. It's a very fun, interesting film. 2LDK is totally different conceptually. It's about two women who are both actresses who are going for the same role. They're going after the same guy, and they've been roommates, and they've been getting on each other's nerves in addition to going after the same role and the same guy. And it comes to a head, and there's a duel, and they just go at it in brutal fashion. And that's kind of the duel of that one. So that's the reason I have to have these two films together. It's because A, they're two short films, so I feel like, you put two short films together, it's one feature-length film, and B, they're the same project, they're the same base idea, and they were competing, like where they spawned from. So these I really think people should seek out if you can find them. I don't even know, and you should check them out for sure. They're very entertaining, very cool. And what are the runtimes? Like 70 minutes on this one and 80 minutes on this one, so I guess that's an hour 20. It's closer to a feature. 70 is hour and 10. But anyway, those are my picks. 2LDK and Origami for the most underrated films of 2003. Let me know if I cheated. I don't know. I feel like it's slightly cheating, but not really. I feel like I justified it well enough. But anyway, thank you everyone for checking these out. Comments, subscribe, all that stuff. We appreciate your involvement with this. And until next time, keep it brutal.